Good morning. This is Jennifer Hermaning with the Burnsville Chamber of Commerce. Today is Friday, June 6th. We're here for our June business briefing, and we have some chamber members in the room and some local updates, as well as our legislative update this morning. So we are going to get started here. I know we're having a few technology issues, but the first thing we're going to do is introduce City Council Member Dan Keeley to give us a city update. Dan?
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm not visible. My webcam wasn't recognized by my Zoom software this morning, but I will run through a few highlights from the city. And I have an 8-year-old that's now out of school in the room with me, so I asked him to to try not to talk while I have the mic hot. One quick note, I mentioned in our May meeting that I was planning on going to the National Law Enforcement Memorial. Happened the week of the 13th through 17th in Washington, D.C., and I did fly out for a couple days on my own. I joined Greg Lindbergh, our city manager, and B.J. Jungman, our fire chief. And really, there's about 75% of our PD was there to honor our two fallen heroes. And I have to tell you, it was a very healing and emotional event for everyone. I've never been to that ceremony before, and I was just there for 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday, and it was certainly heartwarming, emotional, and gave me a perspective that I didn't previously have. I'm hoping that our Burnsville PD and FD Foundation would allocate funds each year to send a small group of officers, 3 or 5, to return to that ceremony, place flowers on the names of our fallen hero, and participate in the annual ceremony at both the fire and police memorials. May 3rd was the fire national memorial, and I was in Mexico on vacation and was not able to get back and attend that one. But uh, highly recommend for those going to Washington, D.C. to go walk those memorials. Public Works had an open house on May 14th, and about 1,500 people attended. That's a great crowd, great attendance. Last night, you may or may not have been at the first party on the plaza. A great crowd. That was by far the largest crowd at the first one, which usually is the biggest of the season. There's three, one in June, one in July, and one in August. Being the last day of school and a very warm, sunny day, it was a perfect evening to attend. I did see a lot of people there and enjoyed that event with my wife and grandson. Commission appointments, we had 37 applications this round. A very robust response from our community to step up and apply for a volunteer location. It triggered 2 dates of interviews, and due to scheduling, we were one day off being able to announce the results at our meeting earlier this week. So we're going to announce those on June 17th. There's a public cutoff date for um, disclosure to the public of the council's activities, and we were a day late because of the extra day of interviews, which is a good thing. A little Sioux Trail Elementary background. We talked about this. Many people are very invested and very passionate and supportive of what's going to happen to that property. Obviously, very disappointed that the school had to close, but the reality is the population of the school district. It was the right decision for the interest of the whole school district. But the neighborhood is very engaged. There's been some public meetings. And we've had, of course, a proposal come to us, and there's been a lot of discussion related to the preserving the city park, Tennessee Park there. So I pulled some history and want to just quick share it. On March 3rd, 1986, the city council approved a bid to purchase and install a playground at Sioux Trail in collaboration with the Sioux Trail Parent Teachers Organization and the school district. It was interesting. The city at the time determined that this adjacency of Tennessee Park and the school property made this a joint effort and an appropriate strategic investment in the community. Then again, on November 20th of 2000, the city council authorized the replacement of the original playground. And we now, as a city, continue to inspect and maintain this now 25-year-old play structure, which is nearing the end of its functional life. So staff and the city continue to be available to support the school district as they work to sell the property, but preserving that park amenity is a priority to a lot of people. Freeway Properties, pretty exciting. They've hired an architectural firm. They're designing and refining the proposal for the Chalet Golf driving range site. That is as many of you know, that's a proposed Top Golf-like facility. It's not called Top Golf, but it's basically very much the same with some technology advantages and also indoor racquetball facility. So a joint press release was recently shared, and the architects will present the updated vision at a June 11th event co-hosted by Freeway Properties and our very own Burnsville Chamber of Commerce at Porter Creek. We are expecting I would expect a pretty good crowd. I think there's a lot of people interested in this, and we also expect Freeway Properties to submit a formal application to the city fairly soon. That's going to trigger official activity. Right now, it's all been, discussion, presentations, but when they put the application in, that's going to trigger some response and activity. On the economic development construction activity front, Walmart in Burnsville is doing a $3.5 million interior remodel. I shop there a lot. It's right near my office and home, so I'm thrilled that they're going to do this. The permit application came in just a couple weeks ago. And then we have another big project, framing inspections and such are going in right now for a $1.7 million I-spine building rehab project at 2800 County Road 42 West. So a couple of really big economic development type of investments. And then, of course, we have one of our own right at City Hall. We have a very large capital project going on. And if you've been by City Hall, you would have seen a massive forestry, like jumbo size equipment removing lots of trees. So for all of us who really love the foliage and the trees, don't worry, they're going to be replanting new trees, and one day those will be all returned. However, on the backside of City Hall, they're clearing out a lot of trees that need to be cleared out because the building is going to grow in size to the back because PD is going to expand into the front area of City Hall, and City Hall is going to push out the back. So it's a very expensive project. It's a very large 3-year construction project, and a lot going on. I've already got some business from neighbors live on 130th that were hitting me up at the party on the plaza last night because they can now see through the trees that are remaining and wondered, did they lose their habitat along with the deer that they know are in there, lose their habitat to seeing a big building, the backside of a big building? And I said, for a time being, yes, there'll be more trees planted, but there's a lot of obviously area that had to be cleared for construction and access roads to get to the back of the building. And then more trees will be planted back there as well. On a legislative front, wow, we have some powerful legislative representation here with Representative Reyer and Berg and our own Senator Carlson. So they're going to hopefully provide some interesting news. There's a few things that relate to the city that I want to share. We're very happy to report the host grant funding has been preserved. Host grant funding relates to we as a city hosting a landfill. You can imagine what would that landfill land look like if it was all built up, and folks like Jeff Lefevre and other developers and real estate representatives had the ability to build some big, nice apartment complexes, office complexes, all kinds of things on that property. The city would be gaining a significant amount of property tax from that. But of course we can't because there's a landfill there. So the state has this host grant funding in place that allows us to get some money in lieu of being able to develop all that. So they're preserving that. There's a small reduction in later years, but it's very small. We're very happy that that is going to continue. Other legislative updates, cannabis licensing. Cities can now hold a cannabis license for retail and the lower potency hemp license. Previously, they could only have one. The open meeting law changed, which is great. Remote participation in public meetings is now allowed from non-public locations. So all I could think about is, boy, could I be a city councilman, but be sitting on the beach in Mexico and still participate in the meetings. Tongue in cheek, of course. Public notices. A lot of us know that newspapers around the metro have disappeared. We're fortunate; we still have our Sun This Week newspaper, but many cities don't have a newspaper anymore. So laws changed to allow these notices to be done on websites and the Minnesota Newspaper Association's public notice site at no cost because they've lost their local paper. So that was a long overdue law change. Thank you for that. And then background checks. We are now authorized to conduct federal background checks for massage therapy businesses, something that we wanted as a tool in our toolbox to make sure that we have law-abiding massage therapy businesses and the nefarious types don't come to our city. Lastly, there's a big proposal that just came through our EDC. They had a special meeting on June 4th, saw a presentation, and we had a chance to get some feedback related to the new local affordable housing aid, LAHA, dollars from a 2023 bill that took a 1/4% metro housing sales tax revenue and distributed. We as a city will receive about 900,000 a year. We received around 400,000, which was about a 5-month portion of the year payment from the state. And we're proposing to add some more money to boost our home rehab loan program with 300,000 of it and put another 100,000 in our senior deferred home rehab loan program that we put in place a few years ago. And we are funding at much smaller levels. We think this is also going to allow us to market it better and hopefully encourage more people to take advantage of it. And then there's some, real quick, there's just some new concept ideas. We looked at radon mitigation. That's not a really good one because the cost of the whole evaluation and testing runs about the same as what it would cost to just put in mitigation. I'm pretty excited about this one, down payment assistant loans. I've seen a lot of other cities, mostly core and first tier cities, put in first time home buyer loan assistant like down payment. These are loans that, for example, let's say we allow someone to access, they qualify for $10,000 as part of their down payment. That loan stays on the books, and when they sell the home, that's when the loan is paid back. There's 2 or 3 different approaches to that. One is up to 20,000. I know several people who have been able to take advantage of those programs in other cities, so I think it's a good way to incent affordability for first-time home buyers. And then a home rehabilitation program. This one is related to, we have 7 homes in the city of Burnsville that are unoccupied, blighted. The owners don't want to sell per se. They're kind of stuck. It's sort of a family asset. There's a lot of history, memories, and they don't have the financial wherewithal to maintain the home or even rent it. So it sits empty and it becomes very blighted and they're kind of stuck. And so we're looking at, is there a possibility that we can come in and help in that situation? Because I will tell you that the neighbors of homes like that are feeling the negative effects on property value when they have a home sitting next to them in that condition. And then the final thing was emergency vouchers for housing. Let's say a fire happens and a bunch of families are displaced or property inspections displaces them. This is the kind of thing that I know for a fact, in speaking with Community Ed 191, they do this on their own. They try and raise money and have a little, financial resources to give the families because, quite frankly, the families generally just go straight to Community Ed 191 because they're so closely engaged and embedded in the community and providing other services to these families. So it's the first place that they end up going to. So I think that program has a lot of legs. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was a lot, Dan. Thank you so much. Great updates. And with that, with no pause in between, we're going to jump over to School Board Member Scott Hume for school district updates.
All right. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Yes, just a few updates that I will share this morning. First, probably most headline worthy, is that we have a new district superintendent, Dr. Latanya Daniels. She's been hired and will start officially on July 1st. We think she's going to be outstanding. Most recently, she's been the assistant superintendent in Richfield, has a very strong resume and was outstanding in her interviews. So that'll be getting her onboarded will definitely be a priority over the summer, so we can hit the ground running once school starts in this fall. Connected to that, of course, is that Dr. Battle is retiring at the end of June. Thanks to Jennifer for representing the chamber at Dr. Battle's retirement reception last week. It was a great event. I was able to be the MC, and I've heard lots of good feedback on the event. So we had a really good turnout, and it was lovely. And Dr. Battle, I know, was touched by the showing, by how many people were there. So that was really great. Couple other updates. Recently, we refinanced about $33 million in debt, which is one of the more, I won't say boring, but perhaps less glamorous things that school boards get to do. But it does result in our taxpayers saving about $3 million over the life of the bonds. So I do think it's worth mentioning, especially to this group. And then also the Metcalf Middle School sale is close to closing. Egan City Council made it, or the proposed development made it through another hurdle with the Egan City Council, I believe early May. So I think we are still on track to close that deal after over 3 years since we've initially got the offer from the developers. It was in spring of 2022, if I remember correctly. So we expect that sale to close later this summer, hopefully. And then last but not least it is graduation week. We've had graduations for our transition program on Tuesday evening. Burnsville Alternative High School had their graduation Wednesday evening. Last night was the adult and basic education graduation ceremony. And then, of course, tonight is the Burnsville High School graduation ceremony, which I will be especially excited to attend because my youngest son is one of the graduates. So should be a great evening. I'm hoping they're making a decision late morning around midday about whether or not it's going to be inside or outside with the rain we got. And based on the forecast, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to have it outside because we have a lot of family planning to attend. And I know many other graduates are in similar situations. So graduation tonight. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. I see your comment.
Well, congratulations, Scott. That's very exciting. And thank you for the update. And we'll all keep our fingers crossed for the weather tonight, for your graduation, for other graduations, for grad parties, for all kinds of things that are going on today.
It's going to be a little spotty all weekend, it sounds like, but they're saying not a washout. So
there's a Twins game tonight as well.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. I will give a couple of quick chamber updates. Fortunately, Dan took care of my first one, which is the Business After Hours next week, hosted by Freeway Properties at Porter Creek. That should be a good one. One thing I'll add to that is Mark Ray, the Public Works Director, is going to be in attendance, and he's going to bring his laptop. Some of you have heard me say that he's a Waze administrator, if you know what the Waze app is. And what that means is he is able to keep Burnsville construction and incident and other things up to date really well. So Waze is a really good app to use to get around Burnsville right now with everything going on. And he will be there for businesses in Burnsville to make sure that their business is accurately claimed on Waze, and that the entrance and that the parking and that everything is set up correctly. Because I'll be honest, usually it isn't. He did that for us here at the chamber. He's done that for a few other businesses. So that's another little perk for Wednesday night. Our out to lunch program will be at Honey Baked Ham the following week. And the final week, we will be at Big Air for our AM coffee break. July, we take a little bit of a lull, and then August, we're right back at it with a Business After Hours at Buck Hill. And of course, you have to put the fall fling on your calendar. That will be in September. So those are our upcoming events. The other updates I wanted to give are related to the 35W Bridge project. We have a page on the chamber website that has a lot of the updates. And the newest update that just happened on Wednesday is the closure of the southbound ramp from Burnsville Parkway onto 35W. That is now closed till mid-August. Next up on July 1st is the Buck Hill Road closure. And so there's still some moving parts, and I encourage you to stay up to date on our website. On our website is a link to the MnDOT page for this project, and you can sign up for newsletters to get alerts. So there's lots going on. The other thing I'll draw your attention to is we've extended our Eat, Drink, and Buy Local campaign throughout the construction project. So also on our website is an Eat, Drink, and Buy Local page that really highlights the impact and the importance of buying local. And of course, that includes shopping and dining and all of that, but it also includes your services and things that keep your dollars here in our community, employing people here, keeping our small businesses healthy. So please help us throughout the summer in supporting our businesses, because some of them are very heavily impacted right now. So those are my chamber updates, and what I want to do now. Yes,
I have a question.
yes.
The owner of the property, the freeway property development, wrote into the Star Tribune editorials page either last week or earlier than that, and he stated in that editorial that he has the support of the Burnsville Chamber for that development. Is that actually a position that the chamber has taken?
So we're going to get into Q&A at the end. The chamber has supported the concept of that. We do not get into the details of any regulatory issues related to that. So yes, that's the short answer to your question. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. All right, with that, we're going to move on to our legislators. We're blessed to have 3 legislators with us today. We understand that the session has technically ended, but there's a special session, I believe, in our future. So we're in a little bit of limbo, but what we'd really like to do is have our legislators just give us their brief hot takes on where things are at and what you think our businesses should know about what has happened and might happen in the legislative session. So alphabetically, I'm going to start with State Representative Kaela Berg. Kaela, do you want to give us a little insight?
Sure. Thank you, Jennifer. So there isn't a lot of detail to let you all know because we are just finalizing agreements on a lot of the work that has been done since we adjourned on May 19th. And so most of us don't have all the details yet. But just kind of piggybacking off of what Councilmember Keeley talked about, I'm really excited that Burnsville was able to keep their host city grant money. I was on the Labor, Workforce, and Economic Development Committee, and Representative Jess Hansen and I were quite a bug in the chair's ear to make sure that we maintain that money for Burnsville and other host cities in Minnesota, because it's incredibly important. And we were not about to let our city suffer. So that is good news. Another piece of something that's really meaningful to me, and I'm sure everyone on this call, was that we were able to get the bridge over 35W to be dedicated as a memorial bridge to our 3 fallen heroes. And so that work was done by Representative Jeff Whitty and I. As well as, other members of our delegation signed on. And so that is just something that was well received by both sides of the aisle at the legislature. And so really happy that that happened. So a lot is left in flux right now, and we'll be getting more information coming our way and hopefully back to get our work done. It's been a challenging session, but fortunately in the 23-24 biennium, we left a lot of reserve in the state coffers, so we haven't had to cut any existing programs yet. And of course, This session, we knew that we would have to make cuts, and those are never popular and they're never easy. And people have a variety of feelings on what those cuts should be. So that is in fact why we are still working really hard to try to come up with a state budget, because nobody likes cutting anything, but it is necessary overall. So I will leave it there. I'm sure my colleagues have other pieces that I'm not thinking of. Of course, there is only so much that we can say, in addition to there being only so much that we know at this point. So thank you.
Right. Kaela, one more thing. For those that are either on the call right now or will be listening to this recording, can you just give us that snapshot of, so technically the session ended on the 19th, May 19th, right? And what does that mean now? What does this process look like and what's next? Because a lot of people don't quite understand what's happening.
Sure. So constitutionally, we ended our session on May 19th. However, our work was not finished. We did not have agreement on pretty much any bill. We had passed bills off of the floor of the House that were advancing to conference committee, and once we adjourned our regular session, they became working groups. And so those working groups needed to meet with their Senate counterparts in order to come up with a bill that had both Senate provisions and House provisions in it and agreed upon. And so because we are tied in the Minnesota House, there was a representative from the GOP and a representative from the DFL, and then some, typically that means that chairs and vice chairs met. And because we have co-chairs this year in a tied House, that was a bit of a larger group. And then there may have been one or two other folks added to those conference committees that became working groups. And then, of course, a representative from the Senate, DFL, since they have the majority in the Senate. So those groups came together, both chambers, both parties came together to work on the bills. So now that once there is an agreement met by the Senate, by the House, by leadership of both, then the governor will call us back into special session, where we hope it'll only be a day or two so that we can hear all those bills and debate and have the discussion and then vote to sign those into law. The reason it has taken some time is because once those working groups came to their agreements, the reviser needed to write up those bills. And so they have been furiously doing yeoman's work to get all of that in order so that we can come back and finish up. We are, every single one of us, I'm certain, is hoping that we get our work done in short order so we don't have any layoffs at the state agencies and other workers who work in capacity for the state. That is always what we are trying to do, is make sure we're funding our state, we're not laying off our workers, and we're getting really thoughtful and responsible legislation done.
Great, thank you. And the deadline for the layoffs you mentioned, that's June 30th, correct?
I believe so. Happy to let my colleagues jump in if I'm wrong.
Yep. Great. Well, good transition. Senator Jim Carlson is with us, so alphabetically you come next. And if you can jump on here, give us your hot take of anything you think business people should know about what's happened so far and what's coming up, that would be great.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. I have to ask first, do you want the good news or the bad news first?
I'm going to let you decide. I'm going to let you decide.
Well, I'm going to give you the good news first. I'm in the Senate, where we have a one-vote margin, which if you compare it to the U.S. Senate, the U.S. Senate is tied, is often tied. But when they're tied, the vice president can break a tie. Now, I wish that we had the same kind of situation in our House of Representatives so that they could break a tie, because almost every slightly controversial vote comes up a tie, and a tie is a that actually means that it does not pass. So a tie vote is a failure of the motion. But yes, the end of our 2-year budget is on June 30th. So we have to pass another 2-year budget. And that starts the next day, July 1st. And the let's say the best way that I can describe it is that there's no authority to issue paychecks for most state workers on July 1st. There are some departments or agencies that survive that by law, but so we won't have prisons opening up the gates or anything like that. But it does require people to be laid off that are not in those kinds of jobs. And by state law, they have to be notified roughly, I think, I don't remember the exact number of days it is ahead of time, but this Monday is one of the dates that requires, I think I've heard 28,000 people to be notified that there's a potential layoff coming. So even that's expensive to tell everyone that their job is at risk. So now, and I guess I started out with the bad news. And I want to go back to the good news. The good news is I'm the chair of the elections committee, and the elections committee got our work done. Both the House and the Senate got our work done. And if you, I'm always concerned about whether people understand how it works, but we do our work in the Senate and come up with an omnibus bill. And the House does their work in the House of Representatives, comes up with their omnibus bill. Then we compare those two bills, and we come out with a conference committee report. That conference committee report is identical in both bodies, and it is not up for amendment. And so the two houses either pass or fail that bill. And we did that during the session. So the elections committee is done. The elections bill is passed, and that's the big one that I was worried about. I'm on 3 committees: transportation, elections, and state government. State government is the agency that actually funds all of the agencies that work for the governor. There are some that it is not responsible for. One of them is transportation. And the state gov bill was also finished, but it has not had the signature of the governor because it was finished after the session closed. And when the session closes, there's a statute that determines when and what the governor can do with that bill. So that bill is done. But like I've said to other people, there's always that chance of bringing that bill back up in a special session because we are really dancing on a tight wire right now, trying to figure out what kinds of cuts are still to come from the federal government. And so we're going back and forth on lots of things, including how much the education is being funded. And that's such a big amount that there might be people going around and looking for some kind of some fund that they may be able to steal from. That's happened before. And it is what is going on right now. As we're speaking here, there are people that are working out the last details of the education bill. There are still some things to be looked at on the transportation bill. And in fact, just before we came on board here, I got a notice of the working group for transportation at 2:00 this afternoon. So there's, without going through the bills that have not been done, I might be able to just say that we have some that where the conference committee reports have been finished and they are waiting for final signature by the governor. And these are big ones. It's like judiciary and public safety, pensions, agriculture, veterans, housing, legacy, human services, state gov, cannabis policy, DWI omnibus, and unemployment insurance for hourly school workers. the bills that are left to pass, I really have to avoid mentioning them in public here because they can sound like a commitment. And I'll just say that E12 education is one of them. And when you talk about Health and Human Services and E12 education, you're talking about most of the state budget. So that's the bad news, that most of the state budget is in conference yet and has to be worked out. And I would say that if you want to look at this whole confusing um, scenario that's going on, one of the best places where it's documented this morning is the Minneapolis front page, newspaper front page, where it says, weekend special session likely amid budget deadlock. Now, we don't have sports betting, but you can bet on anything right now. And if you want to bet on a weekend special session, you're welcome to. And I think the odds are 50-50 or less that we're going to have a special session. We were told last night that it's possible that this could happen on Sunday. And Sunday is again the last day that you can pass it and avoid sending out all these layoff notices. So there's a big incentive to get it done this weekend. But I don't know what our representatives would say, but I would say that it's probably not going to happen because there's too many things that are still up in the air. And these are important things. It's not necessarily as much the money, but there are certain policies that are still up in the air. One of them being and I hope that everyone remembers this word, subsidized health care for immigrants that may not be legal. Immigrants are guaranteed health care if they go to these top-end hospitals. And if there's no insurance, the hospital has to eat it. And this is causing a lot of uncompensated care. So the legislature offered that people, no matter what their status is, can apply for the insurance, the Medicaid, and that at least pays for some of this hospital expense that they're undergoing when they have someone that comes in and doesn't have insurance. The only alternative they have, and the hospitals don't have any alternative, but to give health care if someone comes into the emergency room, and that's the worst place and the most expensive place to get any kind of health care. But hospitals cannot refuse them. So there's a little dance there. And I think what's important to me is that subsidized is an important word to use when you're talking about this process of a person being able to apply for the health care as an undocumented person. And it does make a difference to hospitals. It makes a difference to just how much our health care is costing. And it is a lower cost way to provide health care. Let's see. I have some things that are in the Judiciary and Public Safety policy bill, but it's a lot of them. The biggest controversy probably is the closing of the Stillwater prison. And I want people to know that that's something that was announced, and it's going to take 5 years to do it. So the concern and the panic about closing that prison might be a little bit overblown, because we'll have 5 years to figure out what to do. And at this point, the prison system thinks that they can put people into existing facilities around the state. Now, that's the good thing. The bad thing is that we have workers that work now in Stillwater, and they may have to either get different jobs or move or transport themselves to their new jobs. So it's not a simple flip of the switch. Let's see. I'm not sure. I'm going to wait for questions after that. And I also want to see what Representative Reyer says about the bonding bill. Now, I broke my own rule there. I call that a construction bill because that's what it is. It's an investment in our capital improvements across the state. And it's a good thing because you do get to borrow money and pay it back over up to 20 years. And you get to use that asset at the same time you're paying it
Sharon?
back. Yeah, yes.
Oh, sorry.
Uh, and so that's really a good thing for us. It's kind of like having a mortgage. If your family is growing and you need a couple more bedrooms, you buy a bigger house and you mortgage it. And then the same thing happens when our transportation needs more space, when our university needs another laboratory, that kind of thing. So it's bonding bill is a good thing and it employs a lot of people. And so there's no reason to pass on it for another session, which we have done many times. But I think that's a bad thing for us because sometimes we pass on it when the unions have too many people on the bench, that we have good interest rates, all of that sort of thing. And it is just like buying a new home under favorable conditions. So let's get a bonding bill done. So thank you very much, and I'll look forward to some questions.
Thank you, Senator Carlson. And with that, we'll turn it over to Representative Reyer.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here. I found the first part of the session really interesting and valuable. I appreciated hearing all the updates. So thank you to Council Member Kaela and School Board Member Hume. I appreciated that. I would comment on all those things if I had time, but I'll leave it at I appreciate all the work you're doing. The first thing I want to talk about is where we are in terms of approving bills and things that were approved, because I don't want there to be unnecessary concern. We did pass a number of finance bills during regular session, excuse me, that were signed off by the governor and filed with the Secretary of State. I'll tell you which ones they were, but what this means is that those agencies will be funded. It is true that some of the provisions could be changed by being included in a future bill, including in special session. But the state gov finance bill, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, and the agencies themselves will be funded. Very, very importantly, Judiciary, Public Safety, and Corrections Finance Bill was approved by the governor and filed with the Secretary of State. So those staff also will not be facing layoff. Agriculture, housing finance, Veterans and Military Affairs, Finance and Policy. And I think those are some of the biggest ones. So I just wanted to make sure that that part was known and shared, because I think that when we talk about layoffs, there's a lot of understandable anxiety. The cadence of the layoff notices is dictated by union contract. And so the first wave went out on, what month is it? June 1st for the nurses, because by contract, they had the longest notice period. And then other ones, I think all are on the 11th, but they roll out in alignment with their contracts. So we don't want to see any more of that happen. I remain hopeful for a single day special session, but I am an optimist by nature. And I think that I have seen shared interest in getting it done. I'm not as close to capital investment as I was last biennium when I was vice chair. I'm vice chair of the Health Committee this year and have been a conferee on the conference committee and now in the working group. And it's been very interesting because working very closely with our GOP counterparts in the House, we had 14 offers that went back and forth that we negotiated. And as you can imagine, it was intense. It was respectful. We had laughs. We argued, but it was one of those things that for me, and I think for others, served us well. And then when we came to negotiating with with the Senate, we really had a House position that neither the GOP or the DFL House members really loved, the nature of compromise, and stayed true to values on both sides, with the support of our leadership in both caucuses. So we brought that to the conferring with the Senate. The guidance I would give people who are interested in knowing where things are right now is that there are spreadsheets posted on the legislative website. And you can go through that and see where the agreements were reached, where they have been on what is going to be funded. Those, of course, nothing's done until it's done, and things are changing. Many of the things that are being most fiercely debated in the press and elsewhere, I would say some of them tend to be more on the policy side. That, my colleagues can comment on that. But to me, it feels like I focus more on how are we going to get things done, and I think that people are really focused on that. In terms of work that I've been doing and continuing to push on the on funding for the Dakota Scott water treatment facility on the bonding front, that's my top priority because I think that's really going to help Burnsville and Egan by helping Dakota County and making sure that or the hazardous waste, I'm sorry, hazardous waste facility. I think we really need that. I've been in the long lines at the recycle zone. But I think that rather than spend too much time talking about specifics, what matters to me is making sure that I talk about the things that matter to you. And so I would rather do that via question and answer. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Reyer. And before we jump into Q&A, is there anything else about the session that now that Senator Carlson and Representative Berg have had a minute that we missed covering? Anything about working in the unique circumstances this year? Representative Reyer touched on that with the and the shared leadership and things in the House. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we move into Q&A?
Are you asking me or all of us?
All of you, Representative
just
Reyer,
checking.
Berg, Senator Carlson, anybody, in case you had another thought before we jump into Q&A.
It's just one thing that I would like to share that Representative Reyer just touched on, and that is the number of bills that have already been presented and signed by the governor. And what I have on my list here is, what happens is that if it's presented to the governor on the last couple of days of the session, there's some flexibility as to whether to sign them or not sign them. But after that little fuzzy time frame does expire, then he can't sign any bills anymore. So the number I have here is 33 bills have been presented to the governor. So that's a rather nice number. So it is, and of course they're small. Most of them are small. So we have had progress. So there are good things. And then another thing I wanted to mention is that in the elections committee, we had great bipartisan cooperation. We had Republican bills that went through the session under the sponsorship of some of the Republicans that have been most involved in elections. So I'm really rather proud of that.
Great.
Just wanted, Senator, I don't want to be argumentative, but I'm looking at the list of chapters, which are the things that have been presented to the governor, approved, and filed with the Secretary of State, and it's 39 now.
Ah, okay, good.
Great.
And it
Well-
includes the finance bills that I talked about.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for the work that you've done. And what I will do is just wrap the recorded portion of the program right now, and we'll jump into Q&A. In case you've missed it in our past briefings, we did a legislative session update early in the session in February. We did a 35W bridge replacement project with a presentation from MnDOT back in April. And then we covered 11 workplace mandates, just giving employers information on what has passed and what is coming, the next two that are coming in 2026. So employers have all the information they need to stay up to date. All of those are accessible to chamber members through your login in your member portal. So you can see the recordings, PowerPoints with the links and all of that. So I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning, and especially to our legislators and our city council member and our school board member for the great updates. And we will see you next time.